I'd been at Burger King for almost a year. I was 19, and honestly, the Detroit neighborhood seemed pretty chill. So, covering the closing shift didn't feel like a huge deal. It was way past midnight, long after we closed, and I was the only one left inside, mopping up. The place was dead silent, except for the music blasting in my headphones and the swish of the mop on the floor. I figured I had maybe 10 more minutes before I could lock up and head home. Suddenly, I saw some movement outside. I pulled off my headphones and took a closer look. Sure enough, someone was banging on the glass door. I walked over to see who it was. It was a guy who looked like he was in his mid-30s. His shoulder-length hair was secured in a man bun, with tresses falling out here and there. He was donning expensive-looking clothing. He had mismatched eyes and a cut on his lip that was bleeding. He was standing right outside, with his face pressed against the glass. He looked scared to death, with his eyes bugged out, and he was pounding on the door with both fists.
Please let me in! Someone's chasing me!
He kept looking over his shoulder, like someone would jump at him any second. I hesitated with my hand on the lock. Every part of me was yelling at me not to open it. We were closed, and I wasn't supposed to let anyone in. But the man looked genuinely terrified. He was breathing hard and sweating, and kept glancing behind him into the dark parking lot.
Please! They're going to kill me! Please!
I looked past him into the parking lot. Outside, it was pitch dark and empty. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door, and the man practically fell inside.
Thank you so much!
He was breathing so hard he had to bend over with his hands on his knees to inhale some breath. I locked the door behind him and looked out into the parking lot. I didn't see anyone. Who's chasing you?
Some guys. They tried to rob me. I ran, but they followed me here.
I'll call the police. He caught my wrists, shaking his head wildly.
No cops. They'll be gone soon. I just need to wait a few minutes. Please.
It felt weird. Why wouldn't he want me to call the police if someone was trying to rob him? I looked at him more carefully. He wasn't sweating anymore or breathing hard. He'd calmed down, and his eyes weren't scared anymore. They were calm, as if he was assessing me and the outlet. He caught my eye, and his whole demeanor flipped. A lazy smirk tugged at his lips as he reached into his jacket.
You shouldn't have opened that door,
he chuckled, pulling out a knife with a long blade. My stomach dropped, and my whole body went cold. I opened and closed my mouth and took a couple of steps back, tugging my wrists out of his hold.
Turn around. Walk to the back.
I was so frozen, my legs felt like concrete.
I said turn around!
He smacked my nose with the back of his knife, making me stumble. A crack echoed in the silence as white dots danced in my vision. I clutched my broken nose, letting blood drip through my fingers.
I won't tell you twice! Move!
He roared. Grabbing me by the collar, he shoved me towards the back. I slowly started limping toward the back of the restaurant. My mind was racing. If I could get to the back door, I could run, but it was locked, and I'd need the keys. My keys were in my pocket. Could I get them out, unlock the door, and run before he caught me?
Keep walking!
I could hear his footsteps behind me. He was close. I slowly reached into my pocket and balled my keys. I kept limping, waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, a faint honk echoed from the front of the restaurant, drawing his attention. Maybe a car pulled into the deserted lot. The distraction lasted only a second, but it was the opening I needed. I hurriedly pulled out the keys as fast as I could and sprinted toward the back door, grabbing a stack of plastic chairs near the service counter and shoving them into his path. He cursed and chased after, but I didn't stop. I got to the door and fumbled with the keys. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold them. He was right behind me. I got the key in the lock and turned it, and the door opened. I ran out into the alley and kept running. I didn't look back as I ran to the street. There were cars with people and lights. I ran toward them, screaming for help. A car stopped and a woman got out.
What's wrong? What happened?
I was crying, shaking, and couldn't talk. I just pointed back at the Burger King. She called the police and stayed with me until they arrived. The police searched the restaurant, but the man had run out the front door, leaving it wide open. They searched the area, but never found him. The cops got me to the ER and they took care of the nosebleed. Luckily, it was just a tiny crack. They took my statement and told me I was lucky and that I did the right thing by running, and he probably would have killed me if I'd stayed. I quit that job the same night and never came back. I never worked a closing shift again or worked alone. I learned the hard way that not everyone who looks scared is actually scared, and not everyone asking for help actually needs it. Sometimes, the person banging on your door claiming to be in danger is the danger, and opening that door could be the last mistake you ever make. My parents weren't exactly thrilled when I told them I was taking a job at Burger King for my senior year of high school. They wanted me to focus on college applications, not flipping Whoppers. But I was 17, a kid from Phoenix, Arizona, and I was itching for a taste of real independence. So, against their better judgment, I started working the evening shifts after school and weekends. It was a Friday night around 6 p.m. The restaurant was packed with families and couples everywhere. The play area was full of little kids, climbing through the tubes and going down the slides. I was manning the counter, taking orders. David, my coworker, was aiding me. The line was seriously long, and people were getting antsy to get their order ASAP. I was trying to power through when this guy caught my eye. He had on khakis, a hoodie, and a baseball cap. At first glance, he looked like just some regular guy out to chill. But what made him stand out was the way he was sitting all alone, without a food tray or a phone in sight. He was staring hard at the kids in the play area. I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, but he'd been sitting there for like 20 minutes, or maybe even longer than that. It felt wrong and made my stomach feel weird. I kept glancing over at him between orders. He never moved or looked away from the play area. Finally, I told my manager and pointed the guy out. My manager looked over and watched him for a minute before he walked over to his table. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see that my manager was trying to be polite, dissatisfied with the man's answers as the dude got uncomfortable and defensive. My manager came back and told me to keep an eye on him and said he'd call the cops if anything happened. I nodded and kept checking up on him. 10 minutes ticked by and he was still just sitting there, scoping out the children. Then, this blonde chick cut in line and everyone started yelling at her. That distracted me for a second. When I looked back, his table was empty. I was freaking out, trying to see where he went. Instead, I noticed this little girl with pigtails wandering off from the play area. She looked maybe 5 or 6. She was heading for the exit and kind of glancing around like she was lost. The man was just a couple feet from her. My heart started pounding. Something felt off. I knew it. He was walking fast, closing the distance. The little girl just kept going toward the door and didn't see him coming. Suddenly, he grabbed her arm and tried to yank her toward the exit. She started bawling, trying to pull away. I didn't think twice. I jumped over the counter and dashed toward them. David saw what was happening and ran with me. We grabbed the man and pulled him away from the girl. "Let go of her!" The man tried to fight and pull away, but we held him. The girl ran back toward the play area, crying and looking for her parents. The whole restaurant erupted. Everyone realized what was happening. Parents were screaming and pulling their kids close. Some customers ran over to help us restrain the man. He was fighting hard, kicking and trying to break free.
Get off me! You don't understand, that's my daughter!
But nobody believed him. The little girl was screaming that she didn't know him. Her actual parents came running over. The mom grabbed her daughter and the dad helped us hold the man down. My manager had already called the police, and they arrived within minutes. When he was handcuffed and dragged away, he was still fighting and yelling, claiming the girl was his daughter. The police took statements from every single one of the spectators. My manager told them about the whole exchange he had with the guy. The little girl's parents were crying and hugging their daughter and thanking us over and over, saying we saved her life. The dad left David and I a fat tip. The mom kept sobbing, What if you hadn't seen him? What if you hadn't stopped him? I didn't know what to say, because I was thinking the same thing. What if I hadn't noticed? What if I'd been too busy with customers and ignored my gut feeling? After the police left, my manager let me take a break. I went to the back and just sat there shaking. David sat down too. We talked about it for hours. The whole thing had happened so fast, maybe 2 minutes from start to finish, but it felt like hours. The restaurant slowly went back to normal, with families finishing their meals and kids going back to the play area, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The police came back to get statements from the staff, especially me. They told us the man had attempted similar abductions at other fast food restaurants, always places with play areas and always crowded environments where he could blend in. He'd been doing it for months and counting on the chaos to slip away unnoticed before anyone realized what happened. We were the first people to actually stop him. I'm 18 now and still work at that Burger King, but I watch the play area differently now. I watch everyone who sits alone, doesn't order food, and watches the kids too closely. Because that day taught me that predators look for opportunities and count on people being too busy or too polite to say something. They count on you ignoring your gut. But sometimes, paying attention is the difference between a kid going home safe or never going home at all. Burger King was my first real job when I was 18. I'd only been working there for about 3 months, but honestly, I dug it. I usually got the late shifts, which meant only a few cars ever rolled through. I used to use that downtime to get my homework done. It was one of such nights. I was by myself at the drive-thru window, trying to finish up while my manager was in the back doing inventory. The parking lot was nearly empty, with only a handful of cars or customers. I was chilling at the window, waiting for it to hit midnight so I could finally lock up and bounce, when this dark sedan pulled up to the speaker. "A small fries and a Coke," the dude ordered.
Sure. Pull around to the window, please.
When he rolled up to the window, I opened it and handed him his order. He paid, but instead of taking off like any regular customer would, he sat there in his car with the engine running, looking at me. When I asked if he needed anything else, he shook his head, but he still didn't leave and kept staring. It made me uncomfortable. The parking lot behind him was nearly deserted now. He smirked as if he could read my thoughts and started asking stuff like, could I give him extra napkins, and how much would it cost if he ordered a different sauce? Every time I handed something out, he'd ask for something else, like he was stalling, trying to keep me at the window. My stomach started to feel weird. I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting for my manager to step out.
Sir, is there anything else I can help you with? We're about to close.
I asked, trying to sound polite but also hoping he'd get the hint and leave. Actually, yeah. Can I get my fries remade? These are cold.
Just that, right? I'm afraid we won't be able to process another request.
He nodded. Heaving a sigh, I took the fries back and went to the fryer. My hands were shaking. I didn't know why I was so scared. He was just a customer being picky. I made new fries and brought them to the window. Thanks. I nodded and hoped he'd finally leave. Instead, he asked for a different drink, said he really didn't like this one, and promised he wouldn't bother me further. I'd had enough. I was about to tell him to buzz off. Suddenly, loud sirens wailed in the distance. His face changed. The cockiness faded off. He looked nervous and anxious. Before I could react, he forced the drive-thru window open wider and started climbing through. I backed away, but he grabbed my arm and pulled himself inside.
Don't scream. I'm not here to rob you. I just need somewhere to hide for a little while. Understand?
I nodded. I was too scared to do anything else. He let go of my arm, moved away from the window, and stood against the wall where no one outside could see him. The sirens were really close now.
Act normal. If the cops come here, you serve them like nothing's wrong. You say anything, and I'll kill you before they even make it to the door. Got it?
I nodded again. My whole body was shaking at this point. I wanted to scream and to run, but I couldn't move. A minute later, 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot with their lights flashing. One of the cars pulled up to the drive-through speaker. "Yeah, can I get 2 coffees?" I looked at the man hiding against the wall. He was staring at me. He was watching my every move, clutching a butcher knife in his hand. I didn't realize when he'd grabbed one.
Sure. Pull around to the window.
As I made the coffee, my hands were trembling so bad that I spilled some on my apron. The police car pulled up to my window. I opened it and handed the coffees out. The officer looked at me. "You okay? You look pale."
I'm fine. It's been a long shift.
He nodded, paid, and drove away. The man stayed hidden against the wall and watched through the window as police cars circled the parking lot. After 20 minutes, they left. The man relaxed and moved away from the wall. "Whew. Good job." He patted my shoulder before he climbed back out through the window and got in his car and drove away. I stood there, frozen. I couldn't move. My manager came back from inventory and asked why I looked scared. I told him everything. He immediately called the police. They came back within minutes and asked me questions. What did he look like? What did he say? What car? I told them everything. They never caught him or found out who he was or what he was running from. Police said I did the right thing by not fighting back, and that I could have been killed. But it didn't feel right. It felt like I let a dangerous person get away. I quit that Burger King the next day. I couldn't stand at that window without seeing his face or feeling his hand on my arm or hearing him say he'd kill me. I got a different job at a grocery store with a day shift only. I don't work late or alone. Because that night taught me that sometimes doing what you're told is the only way to survive, even when every part of you wants to scream. And even when you know letting them get away means they might hurt someone else, you do what you have to do to stay alive.